Hey guys, I'm going to be talking about something new today. Obviously, a lot of you guys know me from X or from Twitter. Blunt's Capital, talking about crypto. This YouTube channel, I'm going to start pivoting towards talking about TCGs, just because it's something new. It's something I'm interested in at the moment, and it's something that's in a raging bull market. Um, Predominantly, I'm buying One Piece. But today, this specific video, I want to talk about Gundam, because this is a new TCG that came out in July. It's done extremely well. Basically, within a month, it's sold out everywhere. Prices went from around about 180 all the way up to 274. I think was the highest sold on TCG Player. That was the first wave. Basically, the first wave sold out everywhere. The second wave has just come out. So basically, this dip here that we've seen, coming down from 274 all the way down to current prices, they're selling at about 185. That is due to the second wave of prints that have now come out. But looking at this on TCG Player, now this doesn't give us all the, it doesn't give us all the information, because obviously most of these boxes are being sold at, online, real shops. But basically what this is telling me is, not only have we had the dip, but we're seeing a whole bunch of volume come down here. So after coming down peak to trough, we're currently about 10%, but I think it's more like 25%. If we look at it in terms of percent from these highs. But if we zoom in here on the 1 month, we can see all this supply starting to get bought up. We had a big dip. We're getting a lot of volume coming in here. Down near the bottom, there was 100 copies sold literally a couple days ago, and volume starting to tick up. So I do think this is probably the bottom. The second wave has just hit, and I think that supply is starting to get bought up. So the reason I want to talk about Gundam today is I do think this is a pretty good investment opportunity down here. If we compare this to, let's say, Romance Dawn, right? Let's say we look at One Piece. This is the first wave of the blue bottoms that came out in 2022. Obviously, I can only go back into 1 year in terms of chart price history on TCG Player. But basically what happened in 2022, they ended up releasing 3 waves of this. They did wave 1 and wave 2, which ended up being these blue bottoms. And that was the initial print run. After that, they kind of stopped. And then I think about 8 months later, they released a wave 3. They released another wave. Because the demand was just so extraordinarily high, they had to release another wave. And then they ended up releasing that wave, and the box was different. The box ended up having a white bottom, and they changed some of the text on some of the cards. So basically what you have is you have 2 Romance Dawns. You have a white wave, which is pretty much at this point classed as a first edition set, which is currently trading at $2,575. And I think MSRP was like $150 back in 2022. So this particular, this trading card game is, coming up to three years now, and it's gone from 150 MSRP all the way up to 2,575 in 1 year. So this is obviously the first set. If we look at the white bottoms, which is the third wave, it says wave 2, but it's not. It was actually the third wave. If we look at that, this is currently selling at 425. So even this, which is the third wave, is still up, maybe 200%. And we're talking about, 400, 500, but 600% on the blue bottoms in 3 years. So I think provided that this game actually stays relevant, which I do think it's going to. I think, all the online metrics are saying that this is an extremely popular game. It's the Bandai's biggest IP, even bigger than One Piece. Even though I think in general One Piece is a bigger IP overall, this is Bandai's biggest IP, and this is the one they have sole 100% rights to. So I think they're going to do everything within their power to make this game stay relevant, because they're going to get a higher percent of the profits from this game. Even though Bandai's had a pretty shitty reputation in the past with failed games, I do think over time they've finally figured out the sweet spot, and they've finally figured out how to actually make games good and relevant and desirable. As we can see with One Piece, they're absolutely killing it on that. I'm heavily invested into One Piece, but today I just want to talk about Gundam, because I think right now it poses an extremely good opportunity. There's a lot of supply now on the market simply because the second wave has just hit. But I do think that is going to start changing. I think that supply is going to start getting bought back up. And I think within the next couple of weeks, potentially 2 weeks, all that new supply from this second wave that's currently hitting the markets right now, I think is going to start getting absorbed. And I think this price is going to start trending up again. And if we look at Romance Dawn, back in 2022, if you actually follow what happened with that, you can't really go back in history now because, we can only go back 1 year. But basically what happened with that is price sort of peaked after the first and second wave, which were the blue bottoms. Price peaked around 500. And then when the third wave hit, about 6 to 8 months later, price came back from 500, had a bit of a pullback. I think back to like 250 or whatever, and then since then has just been on an upwards trajectory up towards the $2,500 mark. So I do think right now this is an extremely good opportunity. Another thing I wanted to talk about is just the supply. Like, we've just had a second wave hit the market. The current quantity listed on TCG Player, even with this second wave that's just started in the market, is still only 197. There's only 197 listed on TCG Player right now. Now, obviously, a lot of stores are starting getting restocks, especially in Australia. Some stores that I've put pre-orders for cases in for have already started shipping those out. So the restocks have hit, and that current supply, that current quantity that's listed is still quite low, 197. If we look at the newest One Piece set, which is OP12, Legacy of the Master, that literally came out, about a week ago. The current quantity on TCG Play is 416. So we're looking at that. That's the brand new set, 416. There's currently only 200 Gundam booster boxes on TCG Player right now. Now, the set before the OP12, which is has got 416. This set here, Fist of Divine Speed, this one actually came out around about the same time as Gundam. So this is probably a better one to actually take comparisons from. So if we look at Gundam, which also came out at the same time, there's only 197 current listed quantity. Right now, a Fist of Divine Speed, which has had just been out for the same amount of time, has already had its 2 waves. The current quantity is 573. So basically what that's telling me is they're printing far more One Piece than they're printing Gundam. Gundam has actually been a massive hit. It's been far more popular than they thought, but they didn't print enough because they weren't anticipating how popular this was going to be. Now, I personally think that after this sort of second wave hits, price is going to start going up. I think what's probably going to happen is they may potentially do a third wave print like they did with Romance Dawn in One Piece, but I don't think that third wave is going to come for many, many months to come. And before that happens, I dare say the premium booster that's coming out in a few months will get released, and I have a feeling set 2 will probably come out before they do a third print of this third wave. So I do think they have underprinted this box because they didn't anticipate the demand. I do think that they will eventually start catching up with their print runs as they start realizing how popular this game is actually going to become. But I think that at this point that it's underprinted, demand is going to start rising, and I think that this is going to be one quite similar to how Romance Dawn played out with One Piece, where they underprinted it. They eventually started printing more product, but that didn't come until later sets, which is why we see things like Romance Dawn Blue Bottoms trading at $2,500 on secondary markets right now, because there was never enough printed to begin with. And that was something that they printed 3 waves of as well. So obviously the newer sets, there's a lot of supply on the markets. Like if we look at Romance Dawn, I think this is the white bottom. There's only 48. So this is something that was printed 3 years ago. There's only 48. If we look at the blue bottoms, in terms of supply, let's have a look at blue bottoms. Romance Dawn. Current supply is 37. So I think what's probably going to happen is if we look at, if fast forward 3 or 4 years from now, this will be something in a very similar situation where this was underprinted, and then the subsequent sets after that, they started printing more to demand because they started realizing how much demand this is actually going to happen. But pretty much what I'm saying is I think that this is going to be potentially something that plays out the same as One Piece, and I do think that this box in the future is going to be quite scarce. I think it's currently underprinted. They completely underestimated the demand, and I do think they will definitely start printing more of this in future sets, but I think this particular set one is going to be something that is going to be underprinted. I don't think they're going to start printing more product until future sets. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on this today, guys. I do think that potentially in a couple of years down the line, we're going to see this at multiples higher. And I think this is something that's worth buying for a collection. So basically, I'm going to end this one here today, but I expect to see a lot more content from me talking about TCGs. All right, cheers, guys. Bye.